Good morning and God bless. Welcome back to the Daily Bread Podcast. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about the topic of God can do anything. And when I'm saying that, I mean how God can make the impossible seem possible. Now, there's many times in the Bible and in our lives where God might have done something for us and it seemed like it was impossible for us, but God made it happen. I'm pretty sure almost everybody has a testimony like that. And if not, then you will encounter one at some point where something impossible may where something that seems impossible may happen, but God makes it possible. Now, there's many examples of this in the Bible. There's millions, but I've about four here. Or well, I'm just gonna read off a few, like when when God used Moses with the Red Sea, when Jonah was still alive in the belly of the big fish or the whale. For 3 days he was in there. Imagine that. It didn't digest him, it didn't swallow him, it didn't do anything. Sarah giving birth to a child at 90, that's almost unheard of at all. And at 90 years old, when they were near 100, they were able to have kids, which is crazy. Just think about it, the things that God can do. Now, there's many times in the Bible where we may feel, there's many times in our life that we may feel that we can't do anything, that we feel too small to do something, that we feel not prepared. But the thing is, we can always call upon the Lord. There's been times in my life where I felt that it's over, this is impossible, or times that something that seemed impossible was possible. For example, times where like I've wanted to do something, and I brought it before the Lord, saying, Lord, I really want to do this. This is the goal I have. I really, really want to do this. Or I say, Lord, please let this happen. And of course, I may not hear the response, but I put my faith in God. And you know what? It does happen. There's many times where that's happened. One time, I have a story one time um, where we went out to eat after a Sunday for Mother's Day. And I started to choke on food. And I started to black out as well, so I thought it was over. And it turns out I felt like I felt as if the food was coming out of like my system, whatever, from my mouth. And like I felt like somebody was like holding me up, and somebody was like helping me. But turns out it was no one, nobody. Eventually, my aunt and my father came, but I felt somebody holding me up, somebody like not letting me like pass out and helping me a lot. And then it turns out no, they came later. It wasn't them at first. And to this day I believe that it was like an angel. That it was the Lord helping me. I thought it was impossible. I thought it was done. you know, I couldn't see anything. I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was over. But you know what? I'm still here today. Thanks to the Lord, obviously. All glory to the Lord. But there's many other examples in the Bible where something seems impossible, and it was possible. All right. 1 Samuel 17:50 to 53. This is when David defeats Goliath. David defeated Goliath with a sling and a rock. Think about this. Like a sling and a rock. A sling and a rock. Nothing else. Well, of course, God, but like it seems impossible, right? Got one sling and a rock. It seems like you can't do that. It seems like if I was David, I don't know what I'd do. I'd try to put my faith in God, but with a sling and a rock, he had to defeat a giant who had a sword, a shield, everything. Could have just like flicked. He could have just gone up to David with his finger, and David's gone, and David's flying away. He could have just done that, but David, because God is protected. There's many times where David was protected by God throughout the Bible, which shows David was a man after. It says in the Bible, God says David was a man after my own heart, which is amazing. And we should hope to have that have a heart like David, to be able to follow God and have our love for God. Because of course there's many blessings when you follow God. When you follow God, um, if you have your heart after Him, He loves you. But if truly sees that He loves you and that you're not like a lukewarm Christian, like it says in the Bible, it says that He will spit you out of His mouth, that you are distasteful. But if you are hot and fiery for the Lord, He's gonna want you more. So He's not gonna let you die. Lukewarm Christian, of course He still loves them, but there's a different type of love from the person. That person may not love God that much compared to a person who's on fire for the Lord. And you know what? If you don't love God, he will always love you. But if you turn your back on Him, He'll turn His back on you. That's what it says in the Bible. King Saul, he turned his back on God, and God turned His back on him. He outright disobeyed God and tried to say that what he did was right, and tried to hide things from the Lord. Which you can't hide anything from the Lord. He knows everything about you, by the way. Next, let me read it. David defeated Goliath with a sling and a rock. He killed him without even using a sword. David ran over and pulled out Goliath's sword, which is really big, obviously heavy, so David had the strength to grab it, and he used it to cut off Goliath's head. Crazy. Next, I'm just gonna have a few more verses and the rest. Exodus 14:21-29. Moses raised his hand over the Red Sea, and the Lord caused a strong wind to blow from the east. The wind blew all night long. The sea split, and the wind made the ground dry. The Israelites went through the sea on dry land. Think about this. They had to carry. Okay, it wasn't just them walking. They had to take their children with them. They had to take their things. I'm pretty sure they took some animals as well. They were farmers. They had to take so many things and had to cross this huge river. If you search up the Red Sea, I'm sure you can get some images of how large it was. But it says that it made the ground dry for them as well. That even when they would walk, that they would not have their feet wet. They would not have their sandals wet, whatever they were wearing. That they would not get wet at all. It seems impossible that a huge sea can just split, right? It seems like it can't be done. But you know what? God made it possible. God said, "No, I want my people to be set free, and I will split. And if I have to split a whole sea to set them free, then so let it be, or let it be like that." He split the Red Sea to be able to. He split the Red Sea so that His people can be free. He used Moses to be able to do this. Now, maybe God can use us sometimes to do things like this, to be able to split the Red Sea, to fight the giants in our life. There's many different giants in the Bible, and each giant represents something else. Battles of lust, battles of the flesh, of course, many different giants. And you know what? Each of us have our own giants. Now, whether we're like David, where we're facing a giant, or like Moses, where we have the sea in front of us and can't walk. Either way, God's gonna use us. Don't give up. Just the fact that you're struggling is good, because there's something inside of you telling you, I don't want to do this. So just the fact that there's something inside of you saying, I don't want to do this anymore, is amazing. Because it shows that, no, even though you feel like God's abandoned you, He hasn't. Because the Holy Spirit is inside of you. And how do you know that? Because you know that it's wrong, and because you try your best to not do it. The Lord is so merciful for us. We all sin. I'm no short of. I'm not sure if I used that right, but I've sinned many times. I'm not perfect, but you know what? I hope that I can one day get to a part in my life where I can defeat giants, because I have the answer. But it shows that we just have to get closer to God. Thing is, an amazing thing to do is just read our Bible every day. I don't do that all the time, but I'm gonna start trying to make a habit of it. So I encourage you to maybe join me today after this podcast. I'm gonna read a chapter, And I'm gonna start in the book of John. Maybe you want to read it, Genesis or whatever. Choose a chapter that interests you. Maybe I'm choosing John. Well, the Lord. I asked God last night, Lord, what book do you want me to read? I woke up today and I heard John. I said, okay, well, I'm gonna read John now. Of course, I've read Genesis, Exodus. I've read those verses before, but I haven't read all of John. So that's what I'm gonna do. So maybe you, before you go to bed, say, Lord, what chapter in the Bible do you want me to read? Where do you want me to start? Where do you want me to finish? You know what? He'll give you an answer. Maybe that book is going to be edifying for your life. Listen to him. Now, I have one last verse before we end the podcast. John 11:38 to 44. Funny, guys, we're talking about John, and now we're reading John. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. This is when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. So, let me keep reading. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man. So like Martha was Lazarus' sister. By this time there's a bad odor, for he has been dead for 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said to this in the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me here. When he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen, and the cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So what do we have here? A man raising from the dead, the sea being split, a whole sea, and a boy, a kid, beating a warrior giant with a sling and a rock. And the biggest example, Jesus raising from the dead as well. These are all just showing the glory of God. How God can really do anything, no matter what it may be. God is in your favor. And no matter what you be facing, maybe you feel dead and you need to feel revived. Get closer to Jesus. Maybe you feel there's an ocean in your way. Call upon the Lord. Maybe you're facing a giant that you know you can't beat. Of course, don't go to the world. Sometimes, like David, he didn't take Saul's armor because it wasn't for him. Don't take advice from the world like that. Take advice from Christ, from Christians, from God, and call upon God. And through all that we do, just know that God can make the impossible possible, no matter what you're facing. There's been many more times where I've thought, Lord, I can't do this. And he said, no, you can. And I was set free, and I was able to do it. And I'm sure there's many of you have that same experience. So I encourage you all to be able to have faith in the Lord and know that he makes the impossible possible. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.